Trent Hatch, I think it was your wildest dream that you weighed 130 pounds. Try 95. I think that was a little bit exagerado. And Jesse, by the way, I'm his favorite. I'm going to acabar with all the dudas now because in 1990 he told me so when he gave me most valuable player for that year. Anyway, I do have a couple of stories I want to tell you. It was the fall of 1987, and we were in Thatcher. I think it was one of the first times we ever played Thatcher. Thatcher had more people in their freshman class than we had in our whole school. And I remember there was a 300-pound nose guard playing right in front of me, and my brother Jimmy, it was the first time I ever learned that he loved me because he actually protected me a couple of times as I was snapping the ball to Teddy. And I still remember the play. Single wing right, White Series, 26 power. Thatcher had been beating us up the whole game, and we were down 13 to 7. No, 13-0. And we were in the fourth quarter, and coach called that play. I remember Brad Turley was our halfback, and we snapped that play, and we got 2 or 3 yards. And the coach called out, sent somebody back in, single wing right. White Series, 26 power, same play. We ran it again and got 2 or 3 yards. The play came back in, same play. And we got 2 or 3 yards. And pretty soon we got our first down in a long time. Coach called the play again, single wing right, White Series, 26 power. We got 2 or 3 yards. Pretty soon coach started yelling at us, "I don't want you boys to quit." Same play. He didn't bother running the play in. Single wing right, White Series, 26 power, 2 or 3 yards. By this time we were exhausted. We'd moved a few yards up the field. We were moving it on them every time. And coach then started yelling across the field, "Hey Thatcher, here we come, right up the 6 hole. Single wing right, White Series, 26 power. Let's go, boys." Same play, every single time. We ran that play 14 consecutive times. And on the 14th time, after all of us were beat and broken, we scored our first touchdown in the fourth quarter. I was a sophomore that year. It was the first time I got a chance to play in a big game like that. I didn't know we could play a team that's twice our size. Actually, we're twice our size. And even though they knew right where we were coming every single time, pretty soon the coach said to the other coach yelling across the field, "Coach, put all your guys on your left side. We're coming up the right side for the offense, to the 6 hole. Put them all there." And every single play, we got 2 or 3 yards, 2 or 3 yards, 2 or 3 yards. We didn't win that ball game. But when we went back to the locker room, I never felt like I'd won anything more in my whole life than what I did in that game. Learned something about myself. I know all of us did. I learned that no matter what the odds were, how insurmountable they were, that we could overcome. And even in the face of when they knew right where we were coming, we were unstoppable. That's the kind of man that coach was. He was able to get something out of each and every one of us that we knew or that we didn't know we had within ourselves. When Lance told me that they were going to arrange this for him, I knew instantly if I was given the opportunity to speak what I might say. And I remember in November of 2000, it was during a really struggling time in my life. I was with a really new family. I was really poor and destitute, and I learned that Coach Spilsbury had died. And if there was ever a time I needed to make it back to the colonies to go see somebody's funeral, it was this one. I took the last $600 in my account and I put 2 new tires on my truck because they was never going to make it on the bald tires that I had. And I used the other $250 for gas to drive all the way down here and all the way back. And I had to see him one last time. And I know each and every one of you out there remembers the roughest and the hardest hands that you'd ever felt in all your life. I had to touch him one last time. I almost died last year. And after my wife tried to do everything she could to encourage me to keep on, what she said to me was, "What would your coach think if you gave up now?" I would not be the man I am today if it wasn't for that man. And I know that each and every one of you out there love him in the same way, any of you that felt this. He's influenced all of us for good. And I know that each and every one of you feel it here today. I just want to say that today I can stand in front of, I don't care who it is, I don't care what my insurmountable odds are, I am the man I am today for a myriad of experiences and a myriad of reasons, but I attribute one of the greatest reasons to that man. I want you all to know that I love him very much, and I know that you do too. And what a wonderful opportunity that we all have collectively to have him in our lives. Just want to leave that with you, and I thank you for the opportunity to speak.
And I couldn't be prouder to be his daughter or part of his family. A lot of the people have spoken about the respect that my dad would pay my mother and how he loved her and how together they completed each other. All I can say is I learned maybe one or two lessons the hard way as to how much my dad respected my mom. One time a lot of times I kind of had a temper. And one morning I was just, probably had to go change my shoes because I had to run the hill. And I've probably run that hill, sister, more times than probably all of you combined. My dad would go, "Okay, bring your running shoes," because he knew I'd be late. He knew it. But anyway, my mom was getting after me for something or another, and I went into my room. My room's right above the staircases that went into our house, and I slammed the door. And then I found out the hard way that you don't slam the door when your mother is Virginia Spilsbury. I came home from school and I didn't have a door. And you walk in our front door and my bedroom was right there. And he would not give me that door back. So I did learn that, yes, I show respect to my mother, and I feel like he taught his children as well as his teammates or his players to respect each other, to respect, have integrity, and to respect the people that you should respect, such as your wife or your husband. And I learned that lesson well. And I'm glad I was his daughter. Thank you.
Good evening. Lance asked me to talk a little bit about our generation, and well, I kind of think that since we were the ones that gave him that undefeated season he wanted so bad, I'm get to share a few stories from that season.
Here.
One of my favorite stories from that season was when we went out to play Duncan. We'd had a pretty good season up to this point. Nobody had scored on us in a game and a scrimmage, I think it was. And the year before, we didn't have such a great team. So when we played Duncan, they kind of ran up to score on us, and they never took their starters out. Now, coach was kind of old school that way. He knew that You get up by a couple of touchdowns, you start letting some of the bench players play. You don't need to run up the score. But he wasn't the type to forget that kind of thing either. That kind of disrespect from the opposite coach. So we scored a few touchdowns, and we scored a few more. They hadn't scored any. Starters were still all in the game. And then we get down there, and I don't know if everybody knows this, but in Arizona they have what you call a mercy rule. If you get up by too many points and it's in the second half, game's over. So we get down there, it's 1st and goal. I'm standing over by coach with our quarterback, Tyler. He turns to us. He says, "Well, boys, want to keep playing?" "Yes, sir." "Go in there and kick a field goal." If we kick a field goal, we wouldn't have gone over the points. Touchdown would have put us on the mercy rule. We kicked a field goal and kept playing. That was just coach's way to let the other coach know that you don't run up the score on my boys. I won't let you forget it or get away with it. Now, it's been talked about the size of players we had down here. I know that I never lined up in a game with anybody in front of me that was smaller than me. It's usually quite the opposite. They had me by at least 50 pounds. In fact, coach used to call me over during practice. He'd say, "Stu, come here." I'd hustle over there, and as I'm getting there, he's like, "Let me give you a hand. You got a string hanging out of your jersey." And he'd grab my arm and give it a couple of tugs. "Oh, that's just your arm. All right, get back in there." But no matter how small I was and how big the guy was in front of me, I was never afraid of him. I knew that there wasn't a guy that I could find out there that could hit me any harder than the guy that lined up across from me in practice. And that kind of reminds me of a year when I think I was a sophomore, and whoever was supposed to come for homecoming didn't come. So coach decided to have a green and white game. So that week in practice, first stringers were practicing against first stringers. I swear there were more injuries in that week than in my entire time with coach. And I think some of you were here that experienced some of those injuries. Who remembers getting their ankle taped from coach? Because he wasn't just the coach, he was the athletic trainer too, right? And you knew that pulling tape off from your ankle when you have hair is kind of a miserable thing. So the day before, you'd shave your ankle, show up all ready for coach to tape you up. And if you didn't shave up your leg high enough, he'd say, "Well, let me see if this tape really works." And he'd stick it on the spot that still had hair and rip it off. "Oh, it's pretty good tape. Let's get on with this." Another story I remember that's just reminds me of Coach's sense of humor and also the way that he disciplined. I don't remember where we were staying, but they let us use their gym to sleep in. And I guess it was their homecoming because they had a dance that night. Now, there's some debate and question as to whether or not we had permission to go to the dance or not. Some people thought they did, some people thought that we didn't. But it didn't matter because coach didn't think we should have been there. So we got back to practice, and coach says, "Well, I heard you guys like to dance." So he sends our drummer, Brett Farnsworth, off for his drums, and we spent the entire practice with Brett beating on those drums, doing grass drills. So I think that got most of the dancing out of us. But Coach Spilsbury had that rare instinct to be able to understand people. He knew how to get the best out of people. He knew every one of us by name. Every one of us remember the first thing before practice started, you line up and you shake Coach's hand. And if you were there for the first day of your 8th grade practice, that was the only time you had to tell him your name. He remembered it ever after that. Now, sometimes it wasn't a name, sometimes it was a nickname, but those were just as good. Mine, if anybody's wondering, I was the last of the Mohicans, being the youngest of 5 boys that played for him. But the other thing about Coach's leadership is that there were subtle changes for each one of his players. It wasn't one size fits all. He knew what each player needed. He knew the ones that needed a little bit extra attention. He always gave it to them. he never gave up on one of his players. I remember multiple times where one of our teammates had just decided it was too tough. They weren't going to come back to practice. Coach asked who had a vehicle. Tell a few of us to jump in the back of the truck and go and fetch our teammate. Practice wasn't going to get going until he got there. But that's the way the coach was. He would never leave anybody behind. He also understood that there were times to be demanding, but also times to be encouraging. And the story that I remember about that, we were having practice and a little bit of lightning started. So as usual, we went into the locker room. And I don't remember who else was kind of sitting in the area, but I was sitting either right next to coach or a couple down on the bench there. And he kind of turned to us and out of the blue, he says, I'm sorry, I should mention, I'm pretty sure that this was right before our final game. And we were undefeated up to that point. And as you know, coach had coached for 31 years at this school at that point and never had an undefeated season. And he turns to all of us that were sitting around him and he says, I think this is a pretty good season to go out on, don't you? There's nothing that coach could have said to better encourage us to give it our all in that last game. And I don't know about everybody else on the field that day, but I know that I felt for those 48 minutes, I was invincible. There's no way we could lose. Jason kind of stole my thunder on running the same play over and over again because right before halftime, our only quarterback got injured. He was out of the game. So we tried a few other plays. Nothing was really working. So we went to the single wing and ran the 26. And we ran it the whole second half. And it didn't matter. The other coach was over there. He'd call a timeout. He'd line up his guys over there on defense and say they're running right here every time. And we'd go back out there and run the same play again. And that was the type of thing, the type of effort the coach was able to get out of all of his players. Now, I was surprised once when I was still playing for coach to hear from somebody that I respected in town that they thought that the coach's leadership method was based on fear, that his players were scared of him, and that's why they performed. Now, don't get me wrong. My 8th grade year, I was pretty scared. In fact, I remember coming home one day from practice and I told my mom I'm not going back. And she turned to me and says, well, then you can't stay in my house. So I went back to football. And I grew to love it. I can't imagine not having played for coach. I can't imagine not having all the lessons that he taught me. I don't think it took any of us long, no matter how much we maybe feared him in the beginning, to learn that he cared for us so much, that he was genuine, encouraging, and a mentor. And just to close, I think that this quote from Doctrine and Covenants from Joseph Smith best sums up Coach and his leadership style. Reprove betimes with sharpness, and then show forth afterwards an increase of love toward him who thou hast reproved, that he may know that thy faithfulness is stronger than the cords of death. Thank you.
Buenas noches a todos. Agradezco la oportunidad que me hizo una invitación el hermano Lance Romney, pero me dijo así bien rápido, así es que espero no durar mucho. No sé si estoy temblando del frío o de los nervios, pero en fin. Agradezco la oportunidad primeramente a nuestro Señor por haber tenido la bendición y la gran oportunidad de jugar con el coach Spilsbury. Recuerdo que en aquellos años, cuando todavía tenía juventud, era un poco vago, y encontramos mi papá y yo al coach Spilsbury ahí en Casa Grandes, y le dice: ¿qué pasó? ¿Cómo anda este muchacho? No, pues le gusta salirse en la tarde con sus amigos y recalar tarde, y no anda obedeciendo mucho, mándamelo al campo. Pues sí, ahí vengo al campo a aprender a jugar fútbol americano. Y con el cuento ese que yo aprendí, que a lobo never quits, pues hay que correr y correr y correr y correr. Total del cuento era que llegaba a la casa y me decía mi papá: ¿qué pasó? ¿No va a ver sus amigos? No, señor, ando muy cansado. Pase buenas noches. Y siempre era lo mismo. Siempre admiré al coach Max por ser un líder nato. No recuerdo en ningún momento que haya habido un grito de enojo con alguno de los jugadores. Recuerdo muy bien que estábamos en las tardes ya listos para ensayar. Ahorita que vi a Edward Duncan, me acordé que me decía: mira, ahí viene el Jeep, ahí viene Spills, ya valió. Y sí, casi creo que todos los que estamos aquí presentes vamos a recordar que nada más llegaba y decía: howdy boys, y vamos a darle. Toda la práctica andábamos felices de la vida, pero el problema era que si la habíamos regado por ahí en el juego, aceptar un gol en el cuarto, deberíamos agarrarse los tirantes, y ya sabíamos que era ir todos over the goal line y a correr. Esa lomita no sé cuántas veces la corrimos con toda la montura puesta, pero aprendimos bien de una persona que, aparte de ser nuestro entrenador, nos amaba, nos quería y nos conocía a todos por nombre. Recuerdo en los viajes a Estados Unidos, terminábamos el juego y pues yo en aquel tiempo y hasta la fecha soy muy gritón y muy alegre. Me acuerdo que decía: ándale güero, cántame el corrido de Chihuahua, porque ando feliz. Y nos quedábamos muy contentos. El problema era que llegábamos aquí y tenía una memoria que pocas gentes la tienen. Nos recordaba las jugadas mal, las vagancias, las quejas, todo, y se pagaba como con las vueltecitas al campo y lagartijas, sentadillas y demás. Pero aún así, creo que todos los que estamos aquí presentes sabemos que, como dicen por ahí, hasta que se le hizo la justicia a la revolución a este señor, ya tenemos un campo a su nombre y todos tenemos un recuerdo bonito de él. Recuerdo que en un juego aquí, pues era el primer año que estaba yo ahí, y como para el medio tiempo empezaron a gritar todos: güero, 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 y pues yo volteaba. Todo el mundo esperaba verme jugar. Y me acuerdo que me habló muy serio, me dice: venga, sí señor, vaya a ver qué quieren estas gentes, por favor. Sí, entonces tenía un muy buen sentido del humor. Y siempre hay algo que se nos queda a cada uno de nosotros. Muchas gracias por la oportunidad. Buenas noches.
Good evening. When Lance asked me to say a few words, I literally took him for what he said, just a few words. But as my wife typed up what I had written, I can't see it, so I'm gonna have to put my glasses on. You know, Uncle Max didn't need any assistant coaches. He knew it all. like he'd say, he's forgotten more than what we'll ever know. But he asked a few of us to go out and supposedly help him out, and I'll use the term loosely, as to help him coach, because we never helped him. He always told us what to do. But we went out to help, and we were the ones that were helped. More than anything, he taught us how to love the kids. And I think we can look back. Well, he can look back, and I don't know how he could remember things like that, but he can go from the very first team he ever had to the very last team, and he could go person by person, call them by name, number, and position they played. I probably couldn't go back 3 years and tell you who actually was playing where and when, but he had that stout memory that he had. And going along with a little bit with what Lane was saying about Aunt Ginger, our hats are off to her, you know. Every time we'd get on that bus to go leave, she'd be parked in her car behind the bus, and she'd patiently follow us all the way out and all the way back. And like he said, she filmed every one of our games. She was there. And we deeply loved her and appreciated what she did for us. I think you all remember Jay Robinson. He was rather one of the bigger ones that ever went through here, I guess, probably. But in our generation, we had Carlos Baray. And I think he maxed out at about 5'6" and 110 pounds. And old Jay, he was a running back, and he'd get that ball in practice, and he'd come through the line, and he'd run over most of us, and he'd get going downfield clear, ready to make a touchdown, and here all of a sudden, bam! He fell over his cleats, and he'd get up and look around. What happened? Did I trip? And there's little Carlos Baray holding on to his ankles, and he'd tackle him every time he'd break loose. I guess he probably didn't try to see him or whatever, but Carlos Baray was all there to stick him up short. One time when we were playing, I don't know, I think it was a Tractores, it was a Chihuahua, I can't really remember, but back in those days, they were brand new. They didn't have a whole lot of experience, but some of their teams came with baseball cleats. And I was playing offensive guard and doing a fairly good job. And and every once in a while, I'd just move aside, let him come in and tackle Leighton just to keep him honest. But this guy that was in front of me, he outweighed me. I swear he was 220 pounds, and I was not like Trent. I was soaking wet. I was maybe 160. But he got the better of me, and as I was going down, his football cleat came up and opened up my leg. And I went running out. I said, Coach, I'm hurt. And he looked at me and he says, "You big sissy, get back in there." And so we lacked 1 minute till halftime, so I went back in and hobbled around and made it. And at halftime, he said, "Okay, Greg, come here." We went into the locker room, and I set up on the thing. I thought, okay, now he's really going to be sad that he didn't take me out earlier. He says, "This is nothing." And I can't remember who mentioned the tape before, but he grabbed that tape and he says, "This is going to make you feel better." He got that tape and he wrapped it around and around and around. And I thought, okay, that stopped the bleeding anyway. And so until afterwards, I tried to take that tape off. I'd never shaved my legs. I never needed tape before in my life. But my leg ended up hairless that night. Whenever I hear there's a song, and I really don't want to sing it, but I'm going to. But I'm going to give the words, and I'll try to put in the tune of it a little bit. It says, "Give me some men who are stout-hearted men, and I'll soon give you 10,000 more." That reminds me so much of him. He took literally boys and made men out of them. He wanted us to win, and not only on the football field. He wanted us to win in the classroom, on and off the field, in life. He wanted us to win. And I've thought over the years, I don't think we could ever find another man who cared so much for us or our children. And he would do anything for any of us if we needed him to. He's the only person that I know that when we were sent to his office, well, some of you were sent more than others. Leighton was there 3 times a day. But the rest of us learned quickly the least amount of time we went, there was less pain. But Leighton enjoyed pain. But would leave his, it'd be push-ups, boxing, cocos, thumps, running the hill, wind sprints. Would leave his office, knowing that he loved us. And I guess this is why Leighton went back more, because we knew that he loved us and he wanted to go back and get some more. Just to close, I'd like to read a poem that he wrote about life and what he thinks of life and how he wanted us to take life. In the battle that goes through life, I ask but a field that is fair, a chance that is equal with all in the strive and the courage to strive and to dare. And if I should win, let this be my code, with my faith and my courage held high. And if I should lose, let me stand by the road and cheer as the winners go by. Thank you.
So my name is Mason, and I actually didn't get to play for him. And it's not cool, but I was with him from the day I was born. I was either with him or my grandma every single day. And so I'm pretty sure I'm my grandma's favorite because she was here a little bit longer, but I didn't get the chance to play for her. So he wasn't Coach Spills to me. He wasn't Grandpa, he was Pard. And I think it's short for partner, and that's what we called each other. My mom would ask me, "What do you want to do today?" "I want to go play with Pard." Or every single home video that I have, I'm in the front yard with him, I'm at the ranch with him, I'm right over here watching Lance's team practice, watching Evan carry the ball. Those were some of my first memories. And I remember watching one-on-ones. And I remember if it wasn't a good pop, you had to have that nice, crisp, that pop. And if it was one, he would stop everybody and go, "Whoa, whoa, 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 you couldn't even crack an egg on that one. Do it again." And do it again means do it about 4 or 5 more times until you're trying to puke. But that's what I remember. But my grandma Spills, believe it or not, she knows a lot of football. And I didn't really want to believe it growing up because, you know, she's an old lady and she knew more football than probably half the people in this room right now. And I remember after my freshman and sophomore year, and I got to play for my dad though. I got to play for another coach, Spilsbury. About the closest thing I think that anyone could ask for. And I would take my film down to grandma and we'd go over stuff and she'd hit on the couch with her magazine. Why'd you throw that ball? I just threw, I don't know. It just happened, I don't know. And then she would tell me stuff, my dad would tell me stuff about my grandpa hated throwing the ball. And ask Brandon, ask any quarterback in here, we love to throw the ball, right? That's you want to drop back, have time to think about things and throw the ball. It doesn't really happen like that. But Grandpa always said that when you throw the ball, only two things happen and they're both bad. So I don't know if you guys threw the ball much with him, but I guess I'm glad I didn't play for him. But it's something that he always taught. And I believe it was on the Lobo locker room. And above it says, "Through this door walk the toughest men alive." And just because you wore green and white and you practiced with the team didn't mean you were Lobo. You had to earn that right. And you had your own locker room where only the Lobo, the elite players, got to be a part of it. And it wasn't that you're more athletic. It wasn't that you're better than everybody else. It was because you're tough. And this man, I sat and watched him. Everyone knows Cristobal, right? Cristobal, he's pretty much family. He's like a lost brother, I guess. And I remember I was a little kid, probably 4 or 5 years old, hanging out with Grandpa, and they sat me up on the front of the truck, and they're tightening something. And Grandpa's holding it, and Cristobal's tightening. He goes, "It's gonna slip and it's gonna cut you." And he said, "No, just do it." Slips off and puts right through his hand. And he just doesn't, he's like, "Okay," just pulls it out. "Thank you, okay, we're done." Okay, I don't understand. I poke myself with a needle and I don't really like it very much, but he just pulls a screwdriver out and on to the next thing. Okay, for a 4-year-old kid, that's pretty crazy. When I was in kindergarten, and I was down over here at the school, and my mom was doing this arts and craft thing or something that moms do. And if she's here, I'm sorry. I don't mean to be rude. I love you too. And I got pushed off the merry-go-round and ended up breaking my leg in 3 places. And my mom just told me to shut up and sit in the corner kind of thing. And no one thought it was bad because obviously Grandpa came down in the house. This is when we lived at the little house and they lived up on the hill. And after he got done with practice and he got done with the ranch, he came down the house. And I remember I was just crying and crying and crying. And my mom said, "Grandpa's coming down to look at your leg." Tears gone. "Nope, you don't cry in front of Grandpa." "Nope, it's fine." I'm like, "It's fine, it's okay, don't worry about it, it's okay." And I don't know how you are in kindergarten, 6, 7 years old. And I remember coming out onto the little sidewalk and he laid me on my back and he like grabbed my foot in his hand and he would have me push against it. And I would just push and push and push and push. And he would do my other leg just to kind of see which one was stronger. And he goes to my mom, he's like, I don't think it's broken. I don't know how he can push that hard if it's broken. As soon as he leaves, I'm just bawling. I'm just crying and crying all night long. We got heat, we got cold, we're doing everything we can. And the next day, finally, I don't think it was the next day, I think it was like 2 days later, my mom finally takes me down to the hospital.
Your
we get
mother's
x-rays.
here, son.
I love you. It was the next day, right?
It was the next day.
Okay. I gotta exaggerate, make a story. I didn't play for him, so we gotta make this. So we go down to the hospital and find out it's broken in 3 different places. And that's just another thing that I didn't even get to play for him, but I knew at 6 years old, you don't disappoint him. You have a broken leg, you played the game. You have a dislocated shoulder, you're playing. Like, it doesn't matter, you tape it up. Because he caught you a woods, or you know what I mean? But I love him very much, and I miss him every day. And I miss my grandma very much too. I got to hang out with her a lot more when I was home for my mission. And I would hang out with her a lot, and I think it was really fun for me to hang out with her. And Crystal told me this story. I don't know if it's true. No. But it was about how they first met or something like this, and he was walking down the street. And I guess my grandma had this thing for this guy who was in the band, and he's carrying his baritone down the street. Okay, and if this story is not true, don't tell me, because I'm gonna try it here pretty soon. Walking down the street, and my grandpa sees my grandma, and he's just like, okay, I see you, kind of thing. I got you. So he walks up to this guy and flips a nickel at him, or a quarter, whatever it costs to go buy an ice cream cone. He says, go get yourself some ice cream, I'm taking the pretty girl home, kind of thing. So from the beginning, he's got swagger, like, he's just the coolest dude. And I just stories like that, or stories about football, or stories about just life of him in general, just make you want to be like him, or have something like him. No one's ever going to be close to him. No one's going to be a Coach Spilsbury. Just because I got a shirt doesn't mean squat. Just because we go to school here, or we're teachers, or we're, you know, but we can try to be like him, I guess. But thank you, Lance, for giving me opportunity, even though I didn't. Lance asked me when I was driving, he texted me and asked me, and I didn't know if I could say yes, because you guys all have, he's Coach Spilsbury to you guys. And to me, he's part. So, I don't know, I guess I just wanted to let everyone know that I love him a lot. And I'm really glad we're doing this. It's about time someone would do it, right? All right, so thank you, everybody. Thank you, Lance. And have a good night.
Buenas noches a todos. Gracias, mi rey. Aquí pues venimos a dar homenaje a un gran hombre, que fue una influencia muy fuerte en mi vida y en la vida de todos, obviamente. Lo conocía yo cuando andábamos en los rodeos lazando. Y después vine a visitar a mis hermanos aquí en la academia. Yo estaba en sexto año y me la corrí de la escuelita y me vine acá con mis hermanos y me lo topo en el pasillo. Un coscorrón, otro coscorrón, y vete a la dirección. Y ahí en la dirección unos tablazos, y después de que me dio los tablazos, digo, oiga, mire, pues si yo ni estoy en la escuela. No, dice, ya sé. Sí, pero el año que entra te va a servir de lección. Y así comenzó mi carrera con este gran hombre, llena de retos, llena de satisfacciones, y comencé a jugar con ellos cuando pues teníamos un equipo grande. Yo admiraba a todos los mayores. Yo estaba en séptimo año y jugando con puros viejos ya, seniors, juniors. Y pues me tocó obtener una posición por luchar, por ser más terco que él tal vez, y no echar marcha atrás. Y en el año éramos freshmen, Tomás, que éramos. Tú estabas un año más arriba. Los seniors decidieron ese año, cuando salió Jesse, Jesse, Fernie, Martín, Courtney, los seniors que seguían en ese próximo año, ninguno quiso participar, no quisieron jugar. Y nos quedamos con un equipo muy chico y muy joven, pero con corazón. Y nos hizo creer que éramos los más fregones, los más buenos, y todo lo podíamos cumplir. Y gracias a él tuvimos unas temporadas muy buenas. Y no había equipo con el que no podíamos jugar contra ellos. Hasta universidades jugamos con la UACJ, con la Universidad de Chihuahua. Y nos hizo creer que éramos invencibles. Y en el campo lo demostrábamos porque no nos dejaba dar paso atrás. Tú lo puedes hacer, tú lo puedes hacer. En uno de los juegos también tenía en Lordsburg un muchachón grandote enfrente de mí y no le podía ganar yo por nada. Y luego me decía, pues ¿qué te pasó, Jaime? ¿Por qué traes sangre? No, dice, pues este muchacho ya me quebró la nariz 2 veces. Ya no sé qué hacer con él. A medio tiempo, me dice, le estás pegando con todo lo que tengo. A ver tu brazo. Le veía el brazo, le veía la cara. Y en eso iba pasando Martín Bluth con un yeso. Y le preguntó, ¿cuánto tiempo te falta para quitarte el yeso, Martín? No, en 1 semana, venga para acá. Le quitó el yeso a él, me vendó mi brazo, me puso un yeso y un camuflaje ahí para que no vieran los demás. Dice, primera jugada, dice, pégale con todo lo que tengas a ese muchacho. La segunda igual, la tercera igual. A la cuarta jugada se lo llevaron en una camilla. Y fue por el yeso, no fue por lo que tenía yo dentro de mí, pero me hizo creer que lo podía hacer y lo hice. Y así fue un gran hombre para mí que me inspiró. Ya de viejo, viendo a mis hijos crecer y que les gustaba el deporte. Y yo me acuerdo, yo de joven, de este campo que le estamos dedicando a Max. Mi infancia me la pasaba aquí en los juegos, en las líneas, ahí jugando. Teníamos nuestros propios equipitos ahí durante que estaban jugando los grandes. Nosotros de chavalitos jugamos. Y comencé a ver eso en mis hijos también. Y quise ser parte de fortalecer a estos niños, de inspirarlos a crecer, a que tuvieran los valores para enfrentar la vida, sobre todo. Y gracias que tuve la oportunidad por medio de Katie, de Brandon, de participar con un equipo de niños chicos todavía de la primaria. De ahí nos fuimos con esos niños secundaria, la preparatoria, y tuve la oportunidad de conocer realmente lo que es ver un joven, formar un joven a que tenga valores y principios que nos dejen sobresalir en esta vida. Y por este gran hombre, estoy aquí parado con muchos retos en la vida que he tenido. Sigo adelante, sigo con mis principios bien centrados y adelante con la familia y con todos los retos que me enfrentan. Gracias a él. ¿Y qué más podemos hablar de este gran señor que ya no se ha dicho? Muchas gracias.
Well, I probably have had the most unique experience with Max of any of you because I got to be his athletic director for, I don't even remember how many years, 10 or 12 years. So I had a real privilege and blessing of being able to associate with him and with Ginger. But my first experience with Max was way pre-football. I came down here to teach right out of college. And after I'd been here 4 years, they hired Max to come down to be the principal, superintendent of the school. And, after you've been here 4 years, you kind of think you know a little bit about something. And Max that year insisted on making the schedule himself. And it's kind of a tricky deal. But anyway, he did it. He was determined that he had to learn to do it, so he did it. And some of the schedules that we came out with were pretty interesting. I was teaching PE, among other things, and I had a PE class that had 2 kids in it. And there was another period that had 3 kids in it. Well, I looked at the schedule, and if we could send those 2 to study hall that period and combine them with the other, and then it would even it out. And so in all my bravado, I went up to Mr. Spilsbury and I said, Brother Spilsbury, I think that if you'd make this change right here, then we could combine these 2 groups and have enough to hold a PE class. Well, you probably know what he did. He didn't change anything. So my first lesson with Max was a lesson in humility. Years later, when I became the athletic director, you've talked a lot about the lessons you've learned. There's nothing to add there, but two comments. You remember that he had the habit of, he would change captains every game. He would put another couple of captains out there, and we were on our way to, I think, Duncan, someplace out there. And Marco Wong had been, and I know he's back there because I saw him a while ago. Marco had been a beast. And so we're riding out, and I said to Coach, Coach, whatever you do, please don't make Marco the captain this week because he's been unbearable. Well, you know exactly what he did. He made Marco the captain. But the lesson that I learned was that game changed Marco Wong. And you can look at him now, and he's very respectable, father of several children. And I think that one event was at least part of a turning in his life. And I appreciate the comments that have been made about Sister Spilsbury. I told Lance and Jackie, I said, you can't honor Max without honoring Ginger. And I'm grateful to Kenny and Carly and Leighton for the things that they mentioned about her. One of the things that I learned from Ginger, and it was kind of from afar, you all know that she was always at the ball games. But Virginia was smarter than the rest of us. She rarely sat down with the plebe, all the armchair quarterbacks. She would sit up in the top of the bleachers so she didn't have to listen to all that baloney. But she was always there. And you know as well as I do the love that she felt for you guys. Now, one more thing. In the Book of Mormon, Alma is talking to the people, and he's saying to them, if you've been sufficiently humble, if you have overcome pride, if you've overcome envy, if you've had a change of heart, can you say that you do now? So here's the challenge, boys. You've all gotten up here and talked about how Max influenced you, the impact that he had on your life when you were growing up. So here's your challenge. Can you say that now? And if you can't, then go take a hard look in the mirror and make whatever change you need to make to get yourself back to where you were when you were a young man playing under the influence of Max R. Spilsbury. Thank you.
I'd like to, first of all, start off thanking all of you for being here. I appreciate, our family appreciates, and I know my mom and dad very much appreciate the opportunity of this gathering, that you would feel it in your hearts a desire to honor he and she by being here. I'm very grateful for that. I know that the amount of work that went into this is phenomenal. Lance and Jackie, I appreciate very much all that you did. I know that there are many others, but I know that as far as being those that were in the forefront of this, I appreciate that very much. There's a lot been said. There are a lot of great stories, a lot of lessons that we all learned through him. They kind of asked me to talk a little bit about what went on before he came here and some of the things that he did. There were a great number of accolades that he received as a coach and as a person. When he started in school, he began playing football, first of all in Bisbee High School. They talked a little bit about Coach Dicus. My sister alluded to, I think it was in the prefix of the book that he wrote, as far as the influence that Coach Dicus had on him. Anything that he ever aspired to as a coach, he saw and learned from Coach Dicus. Coach Dicus went on to continue to teach and to coach, and I think he was actually in Offo, Arizona at one point, and we went there to play a football game because I think at that time he was a superintendent of schools, and there was nothing that all that he would say and do about Coach Dicus was just, he couldn't say enough about the influence that he had been. And I'm positive that that was his goal, was to try to be the same type of coach that Coach Dicus had been to him, that he would be an influence to him for good, a influence to make people better, and that was his primary goal. He never graduated from Bisbee High School. His senior, before his senior year, he enlisted in the Marines, went and fought in the Pacific, was injured there, was shot there, and that, we'll talk a little bit about kind of what that, I think that those experiences meant to him. But he went, when he got back from the war, they did not require that he graduate from high school. They gave him the equivalence of that, and then he was able to go into the University of Arizona. At the University of Arizona, he played football there for 4 years. He actually played 2 years of basketball as well. I think what he also was one of his true loves was roping. But then I think the thing that he was just as proud of as anything else, what he at 172 pounds, I think, was a heavyweight boxing champion for Arizona. They talked a lot about his toughness. At the end of his senior year, the University of Arizona paid for him to go and have his nose reconstructed. So they took a rib and put it in the nose, and that, whatever you saw as a nose was really a rib. But and if you looked at it, most people would notice that it was a little misshapen, to say the least. But the reason the University of Arizona was willing to pay for it is that he had broken it 16 times. Either then when they played, they didn't have face masks, and he was famous for going in and blocking punts. He blocked a lot of punts with his nose, and then boxing did the other. But he was, you know, I could go on forever about how tough he was. It wasn't until probably my sophomore year in college that I got hurt and went in, and they were working on me, and I thought my whole life I was just a sissy. I just, everything that I did, you couldn't even begin to measure up to the pain that he could endure. And so I just figured that I was just a sissy, and I actually got hurt, and I learned, the guy said, no, your threshold of tame is actually normal. You know, you're not as sissy as you think. You know, but that's just how he was. He just, I don't know that he just didn't have a threshold of pain. So anyway, he went in as soon as he graduated from the University of Arizona. He took his first coaching job in Globe, Arizona. He went there for 2 years, and then his coach, Coach Dicus, was retiring and wanted him to come in and take his place without hesitation, without even thinking about it. He went back to Bisbee as a head football coach. In 1954, he took the Bisbee High School football team to the state championship. That's remarkable in itself, but the thing that's really remarkable about it is Bisbee High School probably had 250 kids at the most, and at that time they didn't have classes, so you had to, if you were going to win the state championship, you had to go up against the St. Mary's and the Phoenix Union and all those other huge schools, and they won the state championship that year. The next year, he went as an assistant coach to the University of Arizona and was there for 1 year. And then he went to Flagstaff, Arizona with Northern Arizona University and took or inherited a team that had gone 0-9 that year. And when they hired him, the next year he brought in, he did his first year of recruiting, and that year they went 8-2. Within 4 or 5 years, they had won the national, or they were second place in the national championship. In the history of Northern Arizona University, it started in 1880. They had in those years, since 1880 to the present, the university has won 8 conference championships. 1 in 1933, 5 when my dad was there from 1955 to 63, and then in the subsequent years after he left, they won 2 other championships in the 40 years that were subsequent to that. So he was always a winner, but I think the thing that everybody understands that winning was he was very, very competitive, but not at the expense of the young men. I think that was he loved the young men. He loved the people that he played with and the kids that he coached for. The team that won, that got second in the national championship game, they've been known for since that time as the Maxers Axers. It's a group of young men, of men. Those were my heroes. When I was growing up and I was in grade school, I would leave the grade school and go out to the school to the college field, and we'd sit there for I don't know how many thousands of football practices that I watched and played along with them. But those were my heroes, and those are the young men. Those are the men now that many of them, most of them actually, unfortunately, are now probably most of them are no longer with us. But there were 4 or 5 of them that heard about this and wanted to come and wanted to be a part of this, and they, because of health situations, they couldn't. But that the love that they would have as a group and as a body and as a team, it was just phenomenal. I think I went on to kind of think of some of the things that the life events maybe that made my dad who he was and caused him to be the coach that he was. And one of the things that was that stands out was the fact that he was raised here in Colonia Juarez. He had a love of the Mexican people. He had a love of the people here. I know that throughout his coaching career, he probably had more Mexican, Hispanic. Everybody has a different name as it is now, but he would go into the homes, and because of his ability to speak Spanish, he would talk to the parents and players that were going to go to the University of Arizona, going to go to ASU, go some other place. He would talk to the parents, and after talking to them, the parents would almost always say, "Hey, you're going to go with him. You're going to go and you're going to play for him." And much of his success was because of that ability. Secondly, as been mentioned, was being coached by Coach Dicus and the huge example that he was. The second thing that was a huge influence on him as a man and as a coach and as throughout everything that he had done was the fact that he was a Marine. He was very proud of being a Marine Raider, the elite of the elite. Of his battalion of 1,000 of 1,000, I think there were like 40 that returned. So the mortality rate there was unbelievable, and the toughness that those Marines exhibited was what instilled him in being what he was. And he truly did not understand. I mean, there was no. That's a Marine thing, I think, just to be the toughest, to be the best, and never give up. And you do what you do. You do your duty, and that's what that he wanted to instill in all of us as players and as his son. That you always wanted to do your duty, do the best that you could do. Secondly, beyond those other things, the other thing that I put down as one of the life events that made him who he was, and that was marrying my mother. And I appreciate what my sisters have said. I appreciate, Stacy, the song that you sang. And Layton, I think your tribute is probably better said than I could say it now. But her wish for my dad was always that he would be successful, and she made him successful. And I appreciate that. Now the problem's not the light, it's something else. The other thing was his sense of humor. I think his sense of humor, as you've seen, I don't understand where it came from or how he could have. He got the greatest pleasure out of some of the oddest things, and it usually was at somebody else's expense. Certainly the players and certainly the students. How he came up with some of the punishments that he came up with, or I don't know, I guess he just stayed late at night and would think of things that would somehow be painful the next day. But one of the best ones was he would get the student and kind of move them off the wall and then just put their head up on the wall and then let them sit there for 10, 15 minutes and then say, okay, go back to class. And everybody was saying, Didi lost his touch. Yeah, that wasn't anything. And then the young man would come home, or he'd come to school the next day, and he'd go, where he couldn't turn his head. His neck was completely ruined for about a week, and then he just get a good kick out of the fact that, yeah, well, you thought it wasn't much of a punishment, but you learned otherwise that it really isn't, that it really was. Again, I could go on. I think all of it has been something that he would love. He would love to be able to associate with you all, to be able to show his love once more to you. I think the thing that stood out in my mind always is that it was his fervent desire that we all be better people, and that we make the world better by the actions that we take, and I think that's what he would want more than anything else. And the fact that all of you would show up to do that, again, speaks volumes as to your character, the type of people that you are, and I think that is a legacy that he would love to have and be happy to be part of. Lance, how would you best want to do this? I think this is it's beautiful. The things that are written here are beautiful and meaningful. And for those that can't maybe see it in the back part of this, this is what the plaque reads. In honor of Coach Max R. Spilsbury, for more than 30 years of service to the youth of the JSA and for sharing his love of football. Through his distinctive sense of humor, dogged impartiality, and dedication to teamwork, he taught us all to give our all, dig a little deeper, never ever quit, and most importantly, when the going gets tough, the tough get toned. Coach Spilsbury truly cared and believed in us, especially when we didn't believe in ourselves. Through his example, he instilled moral values in his players, such as courage, integrity, hard work, humility, discipline, and respect, thus turning boys into men. As we dedicate this field in his name, we recognize his unrivaled example and influence in our lives. May we always honor you, Coach, as you have honored us. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you so much. I apologize that we had such a short program. I could have honestly sat here all night long and listened to every single one of you. Every single one of us has a story about Coach. I thank you all. We're gonna turn the time over to the Tom Jones Band. Tom, Charlie, and Jim Farnsworth. You're more than welcome to stay, visit, dance, whatever. Real quick, could I get the original team? Anybody who was on that original team to stand up? Who do we have here? We appreciate you guys and for all you did. Anybody in those first 10 years, if we have a float tomorrow, if you would like to participate in the parade, it's meeting over there on the back street by Greer Johnson's. We'd love to have a chunk of you on that to commemorate the 50 years of football that you all started, and appreciate that. And also on the second note, that 50-year football book, it's a must read for anybody it just goes through every single generation. You can contact Debbie or Coach Spilsbury, they have that. And all the funds, I believe, go to the NAU scholarship fund that was set up for that book. Once again, I appreciate you all who have come and blessed me and all of us with these stories and with these memories. And I think Sister Vonnie Wett and Sister Bonnie Brown wrapped it up perfectly, that if we're not continuing to do what it is that those things that Coach taught us, we need to take a good hard look at life. And so I thank her for that. She didn't want to get up here to speak, but thank you so much for doing that and putting that bow on such a beautiful night. So thank you all, and we'll go ahead and turn the time over to the Tom Jones Band. Thank you.
En mis brazos primero y de pronto me enamoré, y por todos estos años mi vida yo me entregué. Pero hay de los juntos y están tan felices. Es difícil para mí admitir, al ver su sonrisa cuando tú estás presente.